Coachella is back. The music festival returns to Indio, California this weekend with headline performances from Justin Bieber, Sabrina Carpenter, and Karol G. Coachella, however, is more than just a festival. It's a bucket list item for artists of all shapes and sizes, and performances are live streamed to an audience of millions on YouTube around the world, making it one of the biggest and most impactful stages possible in music. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Katie Bain. She's a senior correspondent, director of Billboard Dance, and the author of Desert Dreams, the music, style, and allure of Coachella, to talk through the history and business behind the big festival. Katie Bain, welcome to On The Record.
Thank you so much. Longtime fan, first-time caller.
I'm so happy to have you here. I love it when I can have my coworkers on and talk about different topics that really pertain to their area of expertise. And so when I knew Coachella was coming up, I was like, I have to have Katie. Because, I mean, you have a book. It's literally right there. Can you see it in the shot? Yeah, okay. So Desert Dreams came out, what, a few months ago?
It came out in October.
October?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
yeah.
Time flies.
It does.
Okay, so how did you end up getting involved with this book?
Yeah, so it kind of fell in my lap. The publisher got in touch with me through another podcast I was on, actually, about Coachella a few years ago. And they were looking for someone to write a book about Coachella. And I became the guy.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. So you're going to go back to the desert. You're covering Coachella for us again. You've done this many times already, which is a very tough gig, by the way. People don't know this, but it's not an easy gig.
It actually, thank you for saying that, because I don't think people do know, because I'm like, oh, it's so hard covering Coachella. And people are like, you know, like it's easy to dismiss.
Yeah.
But you're writing until 3 or 4 in the morning for 3 nights in a row after being at Coachella all day. Like it's pretty grueling physically.
Yeah. And I mean, also, you're not just sitting there like enjoying the performances and letting it all pass you by. You're like scrambling to write down the words or like the song titles for everything, what's happening on stage.
Exactly. I mean, as time has gone by, I just now take videos because I feel like they're the most effective notes. But it's also just getting from this stage to that stage to that stage to that stage to make sure that we have coverage on everything that we want to cover. And then going back to the house and then trying to like pull eloquent sentences from your brain after a day of, you know, the sun.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what are your must-sees for 2026 Coachella?
Yeah, there are a few. I'm really excited about 9 Inch Noise, which is 9 Inch Nails and Boys Noise, who is one of my favorite producers, and he's been opening for them on their Peel It Back tour. So this is their first show. I mean, they've been collaborating a bit on the tour, but this is their first proper show as 9 Inch Noise, so it's going to be really cool.
Okay, cool.
I'm excited to see Geese, because everybody loves Geese. I am excited for... Sorry, I'm going to have to look at my notes.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Well, what headline are you covering?
I am going to cover, I think, Sabrina Carpenter.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, nice.
Which is like a good full circle for me, because I was there in 2024 when she had her Coachella debut on the same stage, but obviously at a much earlier time of day. It was still light out. I think Espresso would come out the day before.
Oh, yeah.
And she said at some point during the set, like, I'm going to headline Coachella someday. And then 2 years later, here she is. So
it's incredible. It's incredible how much fortunes can change in just a couple short years, because she's been grinding for so long. And then it was like Espresso was just the meteoric
100%. Yeah.
But that's also so interesting about booking festivals is you book them like about like a year out, right?
It must be.
It's
I was trying
like
to do the math on that, because the lineup came out, I think, September 15th. So that's October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So we're already, 7 months ahead of the festival. So yeah, a year feels reasonable, but I don't know the exact math there.
Yeah, but I mean, so much can change for an artist's career in the span of a year.
Well, totally. And like, that's why the lineups I think are really interesting. Like, I think Paul Tollett, one of the co-founders of Golden Voice, said in an article, like, doing a lineup is kind of like gambling, because an artist could be really hot today, but their fortunes could go down in the 7 months between when the lineup comes out and when the festival happens. Yeah. And so you kind of roll the dice with every booking.
That's so interesting. Okay, well, let's take it back. You mentioned Paul Tollett. He founded Golden Voice, co-founded Golden Voice, and also founded Coachella. So let's start with some little Coachella history. Can you tell me about how Coachella got started? This was late 90s, right?
Yeah.
Set the scene for us.
So, I mean, Golden Voice is really a product of the Southern California punk rock scene, because that's where Paul Tollett was coming from. He was a punk promoter in Pomona, which is in the Inland Empire, east of LA. And then Gary Tovar, the co-founder, was also a punk promoter in Orange County, all over the place, like the Southern California region. And so they were like ostensibly competitors, but they met one day and they found that they liked each other. They started promoting each other's shows and they created Golden Voice. Simultaneously, not simultaneously, but in that same period, let's say, everyone remembers when Pearl Jam had their famous like showdown with Ticketmaster. And so they were touring for their album Versus. And this was like 93. And they were not going to play Southern California because there was not a non-Ticketmaster affiliated venue. And so they said, if, someone can find us a spot to play that, we don't have to sell tickets through Ticketmaster, we will come to SoCal. Paul Tollett was the one that was like, well, the Empire Polo Club is about 125 miles east of LA. Especially in those days, it was like really considered the boondocks. It was far away. It was a desert town. Pearl Jam agreed.
Wow.
And so they had kind of what they didn't know at the time, but it was like a prototype event when Pearl Jam played out there in 93. And it went really well. A lot of people came up from LA, of course. And it really demonstrated that you could throw shows on that field.
Interesting. And also, I think we take for granted that like the festival scene at that time was just starting, but it wasn't really much of a thing around the time that Coachella was started.
Right, which is so fascinating because obviously the festival market in the States now is like massive. But yeah, at the time, you're absolutely right. There were touring festivals. There was, of course, Lollapalooza. There was Horde Festival. There was the Warped Tour. There was Lilith Fair, 97, 98, 99. But there wasn't really that iconic,
a Glastonbury type thing.
Exactly. There was no
US.
Glastonbury. There was no Reading. I mean, obviously we had Woodstock in 69, but that was already, 25, 30 years.
Yeah. And then, okay, so I was reading your book and the thing that really stood out to me, something I didn't know before, is that Woodstock 99, which was a huge, huge disaster. Can't explain to you guys enough like how big of a disaster this was.
If you don't know, watch the documentary.
So fascinating.
Immediately, because it's an unmitigated disaster. The people that got trench mouth because of the bad water, like it just went wrong in every single way.
Yeah. No, so it was a total disaster. Woodstock 99, it was the revamp of Woodstock 69, trying to bring it back, did not go well. And then in your book, you were talking about how Coachella's tickets went live for the first ever Coachella the next day.
Isn't that fascinating?
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it was obviously like other side of the country, very different setting because Woodstock 99 happened at an Air Force base.
Yeah.
There was no shade. There was no water. It was like very poorly planned. And then Coachella kind of comes along and it's this Eden, ostensibly, of palm trees and grass and bougainvillea in the desert. And ultimately then offered a very alternative vibe from Woodstock 99. I did talk to people that were there for the first year, and they said that having seen what happened at Woodstock 99, there was a little bit of maybe a little anxiety in the air of just like, is that going to happen here as well? But of course it did not. So.
Yeah. So how did the first Coachella happen? Like, was it good? Did it
By
go
all
all
accounts,
according?
it was great. Yeah, the LA Times gave it a rave review. So did Rolling Stone. They noted like the attendees were very nice. It was hot. It was really hot that day, as it tends to be out there. But talking to some friends, again, who were there, they said that from that first year, it felt as special as it still feels now. Like they knew that it was special and different from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, Coachella now is absolutely gigantic. Would you say it's like the biggest US festival? I feel like it is, right?
It must be.
Or culturally the biggest. I think that's fair to say.
Certainly, and like culturally one of the world's biggest, absolutely.
Yeah. What was the turning point where it went from like, this is a fun SoCal festival, people enjoy it, locals love it, to this huge behemoth that it is today?
I think there are a few benchmarks along the way. I think that when they booked Radiohead in 2006, when they were the biggest band in the world, of course, they had big bands before, but Radiohead was really kind of like it. And so to get an artist of that caliber at the festival, I think really, increased Coachella's stature.
Yeah.
Let's say. And then, of course, the other big moment that I talk about a lot is when the festival went from 1 to 2 weekends.
And when was that?
It was 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was really like it emphasized just like the insane demand for this event. Either that year or the year after is when they also launched the live stream, which was a huge deal because it opened Coachella up, not just to the people that were there on the grounds, like the people that knew about it, but the whole world could then watch Coachella on YouTube. And that, I think, is when it became this worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be hyperbolic in saying this, but I feel like because of the live stream, because of the 2 weekends, being a headliner at Coachella is probably the biggest stage behind Super Bowl for an artist.
Yeah.
To be a headliner at Coachella, that is probably the second biggest
I think you're right.
opportunity.
Yeah.
It feels like it has such a huge cultural impact. I mean, we could also get into like all of the iconic headlining sets over the years, but Beyonce's Homecoming always stands out to me as one of those moments where it just like really defines a person's legacy.
Absolutely. I mean, I was there. I was very, very lucky to be there. Do you want to talk about that show?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, how much time do you have?
I can be here all day.
So I remember a friend of mine's boyfriend at the time worked in production. So we were kind of getting these reports of like what was happening backstage. And the rumor was like, Beyonce just showed up with like 60 trucks. Maybe that number is overblown or like has grown in my head over the years. But like the rumor was like, she's here and she has a lot of stuff. There's a lot of like people in tow. There's a lot of like things. You could just feel, I'm a huge Beyonce fan.
Yeah.
So I like, as the set time got closer, I could feel just the anticipation rising myself. But I always say like, it's hard. It's a big field, that main stage. And there must be space for, 70, 80, 90,000 people. Obviously they try to do some counter programming. So not every single person at the festival is standing there because that wouldn't necessarily be safe.
Yeah.
But it's really hard. And I've only felt it a few times where it felt like she had everybody from the first row all the way to the back. Like everyone was really with her and everyone was in it together. And it was kind of just this like closed container of energy and like experience. Beyonce was the first Black woman to headline Coachella. Also, I think it was a really interesting moment for pop music at Coachella because she was supposed to headline in 2017. She had to drop out because she was pregnant with her twins. Lady Gaga filled in. And of course, she was touring at that time behind Lemonade, which is a really interesting album for her because I feel like it kind of made Beyonce, a pop artist, but also a conceptual artist. And like, it really leveled up just her artistry and her storytelling. It was a concept album. And so I think that is when Coachella took this really significant turn into the pop headliners that we see dominating the festival today. Like 20 years ago, you would have not had Karol G, Sabrina Carpenter, and Justin Bieber. Back in the day, you didn't have Britney Spears, the Backstreet Boys, and NSYNC. Like it just wouldn't have happened. Yeah. So I think Beyonce was a real like tone shifter in how the headliners are booked.
Yeah. And Coachella historically, like it started off more rock, right?
100%. Okay. It was alternative rock. I mean, the first year was Rage Against the Machine, Tool, and Beck. So it was alternative and indie rock.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so you also cover dance music at Billboard. That is actually probably your primary beat, but you do all sorts of things. Yes. So whenever I think of Coachella, another iconic performance I think of in the dance realm would be Daft Punk.
Yeah.
I mean, can you talk to me about that? I imagine you weren't there for that one.
I can talk to you about my sadness for not being there, but just feeling like I narrowly missed something that's like extremely important.
So important.
And every person, I feel like so many people that work in dance music, especially in Southern California, were there and got kind of like baptized into the genre in that moment. I was not there, but it happened in the Sahara tent, which was, of course, at the time much smaller. Like now it's this kind of like gargantuan transformer machine. Back in the day, it was just a tent. Yeah. But they had their pyramid set up. It was a big deal for Coachella to book Daft Punk. And by all accounts, it's like the greatest thing that's ever happened to anyone ever.
The pyramid structure that they built is like such an iconic piece of like live music history.
Yeah.
Really pushed the boundaries on what you could do as a setup. And I feel like you can very clearly see now all of the DJs, the dance artists moving forward, taking inspiration and paying homage to what Daft Punk did at that time.
Yes.
It really pushed the boundaries.
It really set the precedent for stage production in electronic music, which you just subsequently saw over the years get bigger and bigger. It's like, I think by 2011 or 12, Skrillex had a spaceship. It was like, it really all started with that pyramid.
Funny. Yeah. No, it's really crazy how far we've come. I actually did a story on the Daft Punk show when I first became a music journalist, and I was talking to all these people who worked in live music production, talked to some people who designed the pyramid at the time, talking to them about how like the bar just got raised, and it's only raised higher and higher. And that's also one reason why you could see ticket prices rising. There's a billion reasons why ticket prices are really insane at this point, but the production value that people are putting into shows now is way beyond what it used to be pre Daft Punk, pre some of these big iconic moments of the 2000s.
That's a really good point. And we pay for that as fans. Yeah. But we love to see it. So.
But we love to see it. And also you can't have a stadium show now where you just show up and you're like, we got one truck, we got a drummer and a guitarist. So,
you know, I interviewed Arthur Fogel, from the chairman of touring at Live Nation last year. And he's like, you know, it can work. You can put a guy on a stage with a guitar and some lights, and that can work. But I like the spectacle, you know, and like I think people really gravitate to the Beyoncés of the world and the Oasises and just the fireworks and the Lady Gagas and the stuff and the thing and costumes. And that's what we've come to expect.
Yeah. And so when did you start going to Coachella? Because I feel like you've been every year. I don't know if you've always been covering it, but you're a loyal attendee.
I am a loyal attendee. I've missed a few years in my tenure, but I first went in 2008 because Prince was headlining.
Okay.
I had just moved to LA. I had no idea what Coachella was. Like, I wasn't going for Coachella. I was going to see Prince.
Yes.
And then I got out there and I was like, this is a whole world. I had been to Bonnaroo and I had grown up going to the Summerfest in Milwaukee, and just like I had, of course, a sense of music festivals, but I had never been in the desert. I had never experienced desert heat. And so that was just a whole different experience. And so that was year one. Prince, I mean, that's one of the all-time performances at Coachella. Yeah. He did it in such a Prince way, too, where they had asked him, he said no. And then I think, like 2 weeks before the festival, Paul Tollett did an interview somewhere where he said he got a call from Prince saying, can I split the merch profits with you? And Paul Tollett was like, are you playing Coachella? And he's like, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to be there. So like, that's kind of how it came to be.
Can you imagine getting that call and you're like, okay, let's rework the entire
and
set times, everything.
And that's what you do when Prince wants to come play your show. And it was such a party. It was such a party. He played a lot of covers.
That's incredible.
He did Little Red Corvette. And I was like, oh, I Can Die Happy. And it's like, I'm good. And then he did Purple Rain. And it was just like, it went to this place of like pure, I mean, really like, incredible. As blissful as you can feel at a show where, you know, we have all had that experience. That's what it was.
That's incredible. So I feel like Coachella is not just known for being a music festival at this point. It's also so much more than that. Like, if you go outside of the festival grounds, Revolve Fest is something that's been growing over year. There's so many different like kind of satellite events that people can go to, after parties, all that stuff. I mean, it feels like brands and sponsorships and these outside events are such a core part of the Coachella experience at this point. Do you ever feel like this kind of just overshadows the point, like the music itself?
I think it can overshadow it if you don't go to Coachella. Like, I think that it has become this kind of cliche about the festival of like, oh, it's all parties and influencers and this, that, and the other thing. It is. That is a huge part of the festival during weekend one, because every brand wants to kind of draft on the cultural power and cachet of that festival. It's a great thing to be affiliated with. People want to come. Cool, stylish people come. They look great. People put a lot of effort into their outfits and their looks. But if you are not going, and some people don't go to the festival and they're just there for the fashion and the party scene, that's fine. But like, it's really, to me, ultimately about the music, or it is what you make it.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think that like, it's funny. I've actually been to Coachella before without going to Coachella. Like, I went to just parties. I tried doing that once.
Yeah.
It was very strange.
What was strange about it?
I mean, it was just strange to like, I would do these day parties and then everyone else would go to the festival, and then I just like went back to the place where I was staying. I was like staying on the floor somewhere, and I was like, you know what? I mean, I love music. So for me, I was like, this is silly that I'm not going into Coachella. But the ticket prices are really high. Yeah. I mean, it was funny reading in your book, you were talking about how ticket prices first year were $50.
Yes.
Or it was like 50 per day. And it was 2 days.
And they lost a lot of money. And they said, oh, we should have charged 55.
Well, now it's a little bit more than that.
It's a little bit more.
One of the biggest stories that one of our coworkers at Billboard did last year was revealing that 60% of GA Coachella goers actually use a payment plan to pay for their ticket.
Yes.
And I think that's so interesting. Like, I think it could say something about the economy. It could say something about the clientele of a music festival.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your take is on it being closer to live music than I am.
Yeah, the great Dave Brooks reported that story, and it really got a lot of pickup. Like, I remember seeing a story in The Cut after that, being like, no one can afford a Coachella anymore. And it was really like turned into this thing of like, you know, what does it mean about the youth and the economy? And people were really like hand-wringing about it.
Yeah.
I think that it's a really smart way for people that don't necessarily have $600 to spend in a given moment to make payments for 6 months and make that financial blow like less impactful. It costs $41 to do the payment plan. And so it's not like they're charging like crazy interest on it. And it's not like Klarna or something where you can pay over time, but you know, then the interest is what gets you.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty good deal. And I think especially if you're a young person, you know, like make a lot of money, like I don't know why you wouldn't do the payment plan. Like it's just it's a nice option to get people in the door that don't have $600 to spend up front.
Yeah, and I do feel like in general, to me, music festivals are such a good bang for your buck. Like I know I was just talking about high ticket prices, but like yes, Coachella's expensive, but you're also seeing just about like every star you might have on your list that you want to see in the next couple years.
Which is why they're expensive to put together.
Yeah.
Like it's like there's a reason that ticket costs $600 for GA. But I think you're absolutely right. It's like going to a great buffet.
Yeah.
It's like I could eat this and that and that and that and that and the other thing. And like I will leave full and I will have had some new foods that I didn't know before, to extend that analogy too far. But yes.
Yeah. No, I do think that it's a really good option, but it does feel to me, I don't know if this is actually accurate, so stop me if I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like post-pandemic music festivals aren't quite as hot as they used to be in general. I'm not talking about Coachella specifically. I don't know, maybe I'm just old and I've like aged out of like wanting to go to all of them, but in the 2010s I feel like there was a festival for every niche in every area of the country. And then post-pandemic, I think we saw fewer smaller festivals come back, in more renewed interest in going to stadium tours, like Taylor Swift's Eras Tour is kind of a perfect example.
Yes.
Tell me, do you think that festivals have become less popular?
I think that it has become a lot harder for independent festivals to exist.
Okay, why?
Because there's a lot of competition for talent. It's a lot of money to book artists. Radius clauses are a thing. Festivals are difficult because the margins are really thin. It's very hard to make a profit with a festival.
Okay.
And so with Live Nation and AEG putting on these big events, a lot of independent promoters have been kind of, and I'm not blaming just them, but you know, it's obviously a lot of things post-pandemic especially, but it's really hard to throw an independent festival.
Yeah.
A lot of the small ones have gone away. Some still exist. But in terms of festivals being less popular or less cool, I mean, Taylor Swift is a great example because she doesn't play festivals.
Yeah.
You can only see Taylor Swift at one of her headlining shows. Same with Oasis. Any number of festivals. I'm sure Coachella, Glastonbury, whomever, Primavera would have loved to have Oasis on the bill. They didn't do it. They didn't want to, clearly.
Yeah.
They could have had the pick. And so an artist like that, you have to go see them as a standalone show. So it's going to automatically create like a taste for that and a phenomenon around it because these are huge bands.
Do a lot of artists turn down Coachella? Because I mean, I remember we've had some conversations in our newsroom over the past few years about how an artist can really make a lot more money if they're doing a stadium tour themselves. They're the main event. We were just talking about Taylor Swift and Oasis being two examples of folks that really prefer the stadium tour format.
Sure.
Do a lot of artists end up turning down Coachella in favor of doing their own tours instead?
That's a really good question that I have no idea the answer to.
Yeah.
You know, I can think of like, I think famously the Talking Heads have turned down Coachella because they don't want to do a reunion, but David Byrne plays Coachella as a solo act. He's playing this year. In terms of like these super modern or like a band like Oasis, really relevant artists turning it down, I don't know. I really don't know.
I guess we have so little insight into how many people they've reached out to. I'm sure they've reached out to Taylor Swift at some point. You know, it's like,
you'd have to think.
Of course they'll try.
That the invite has been extended, yes.
The invite has been extended. It's just whether or not they want to pick up the phone and do it.
Exactly.
But I think one of the interesting parts of signing on to do a festival like Coachella is considering the radius clause.
Yes.
And this is a term that a lot of people who are listening might not know already. So can you explain what a radius clause is?
Yeah, a radius clause is basically a clause in a contract that an artist signs when they, they sign up to play in a given festival or event, that they're not going to play in, let's say, a 200-mile radius around that event for 3 months before, 3 months after, or whatever the time span is. I think Coachella is 3 and 3.
Yeah.
They vary, and Coachella's is, I think, considered particularly strict. But they have to protect that event. It costs a lot of money to put that show on. So if you have a headliner that's playing a show nearby, 2 months before Coachella, like that's going to devalue your event that you're investing a lot of money to put on.
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. But 3 months before and 3 months after is literally takes you out for half of the year.
Yeah. And so I think like this is, as far as I have heard, a bigger issue for younger artists. Because if you're an artist that really your bread and butter is touring, that's how you're making money, and you can't play, the Western United States for one half of the year, like, is it worth it to play Coachella to you if you are not able to make the money that you would if you didn't? So I think it's really like an equation that a lot of like emerging acts have to figure out, because of course you can have a breakout moment at Coachella. It's a big platform, but it can be, I think, a little bit of a roll of the dice.
That makes sense, especially because like these younger acts are being put in the early part of the day when realistically,
exactly,
50 people might show up.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Like you could get a crowd and you could get a viral moment, but if it's 106 degrees or what have you, like it is cool to have your name on the Coachella lineup, but it doesn't automatically mean that you're going to break through on that performance.
Yeah. And I mean, just given the radius clause for Coachella is one of the most important markets for artists, a lot of their home markets, so many artists live in the LA area.
Yeah.
So when I think about their radius clause, which involves most of Southern California, it takes out both San Diego and your hometown shows for that 6 months. I can understand why that would be a little bit too far for someone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting how festivals have this. A lot of fans don't really know that it exists. But it does vary. It does vary.
It really does. And like, depending on the size of the band, like I'm thinking, for example, when LCD Soundsystem reunited at Coachella, I think it was 2017. I would need to fact check that. But that was the launch of their comeback tour. And that tour was done entirely through AEG. So AEG is like, we can put you at Coachella, you come back at Coachella, and then you can do this whole tour through our network of venues across the country and beyond.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, okay, so I'm glad you touched on a reunion, because I feel like reunions are like Coachella's thing.
Yeah,
I feel like they always love a good reunion. What are some of the iconic reunions in your mind from your years at Coachella?
One that I was not there for, but I know was very important, was the Pixies. And that was in the early days. I mean, I think maybe it was year one. Again, I would need to look at the book that I wrote to find out.
Yeah.
But, I think it also just like created that framework of like, wow, this festival has the power to bring bands back that we thought we'd never see play together again.
Yeah.
For me personally, that was OutKast in, I think, 2013. 14.
Yeah.
Those were interesting shows because you could kind of tell that André 3000 didn't necessarily want to be there during weekend one.
Oh, yeah.
And there's this like great story that also involves Prince, where André said that he got a call from Prince after that weekend one performance, and he was like, you have to just remind him you're a superstar. Like, you have to just go out there and show him. And so we kind of gave him this pep talk that sent them back out in a more powerful way for weekend two.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, we talked about LCD, Guns N' Roses, of course.
Was No Doubt a reunion? I know that was like
that's
last year, but I don't know if it would be classified as a true.
They had played
Coachella
together
reunion.
not too long ago, but I think on that level, you could probably call that a reunion, and a really sweet one because they're a Southern California band. So it really just felt like this great, like, hometown, in a way, reunion show.
Yeah. Well, okay. So one of the other things I think is so interesting about music festivals, again, something that I don't know if fans really think about, but everyone in the music industry thinks about, is that poster. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
The lineup is always, the order of the poster is always a very big deal for artists.
Font size, yes.
Font size, line, all that stuff. So is that something that like is negotiated by an artist's agent? And what are some other like things that maybe an agent could negotiate on your behalf when you're trying to play Coachella?
Yeah, it's a great question that I don't actually have a lot of insight on. I feel like there's kind of like a black box of Coachella information that I have not cracked yet. But yeah, I'm certain that's negotiated. Obviously, the set times. And I think more and more, if your artist is going to be on the live stream. In the early days, artists didn't want to do that necessarily.
Really?
Yeah, they thought, I think the qualm was that they weren't getting paid more to be on the live stream.
Okay, fair enough.
And so they were kind of iffy about it. And now it's a huge asset. Like when an artist gets put on the live stream, they're not, like we said, just playing for the crowd there, but they're playing for people in dozens of countries around the world. So it's this huge spotlight. So I would imagine those are part of the negotiations.
That is so interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay, so one of my personal favorite Coachella moments, this is very controversial, is Frank Ocean Weekend 1 a couple years ago. Were you there?
I was there, and I did hear that you liked the show.
Oh wait,
that's the rumor.
Oh wait, I came back. I came back to the Billboard had like a house. We always rent a house. I went that night, saw Frank Ocean, came back. I was like, guys, that was amazing, and everyone was like, crickets.
Well, it was interesting.
Okay, I thought it was like mind-blowingly smart, but apparently like no one else thought this. Apparently
well, why did you think that?
Okay, so I thought that it was really interesting that they basically blocked off most of the stage and made it into a screen.
Yeah.
And so they followed him around. There was a cutout in the stage. Hopefully we can like overlay a picture so you guys can like really see what it looked like. It was basically an entire screen with a cutout.
Yes.
And inside the cutout was Frank in like essentially a home studio setup with a few other musicians. And it was almost like you got a peek into his studio where he was playing through his music.
Yeah.
And then on the screen, they had like a cameraman who was following Frank around and displaying that on the screen. And I thought it was just really artfully done. And I thought it was really deep. I thought that it was a commentary on the fact that like when you go see a live show, we're mostly looking at the screen anyway. So why not make the whole live event the screen?
Yes.
I don't know if he thought that deep into it, but I thought that deep into it.
So you're looking at it as like conceptual contemporary art, like performance art.
Yes.
Yeah, that might be true. That might be giving it more credit, but that also might be true. And it's like, I think generous of you to frame it that way.
You know what? Frank Ocean called me. I want to talk about this. I want to know what your plan was.
That was an absolutely fascinating event, right? Because it was kind of like OutKast, where it's like, that didn't go the way that maybe people wanted it to, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
So Frank was a holdover from the pandemic era Coachella lineups that got canceled.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was a really big deal for him to be playing. And there was a ton of hype around this headlining performance. I don't think he'd headline in Southern California for quite some time. And so it was a big deal for him to be there. And then I remember hearing around the festival grounds that day, like, I heard he's not going to play. Like, there were just these rumors swirling, which is kind of like...
Didn't he like break his ankle or something? I should have looked this up beforehand, but like there was something that went wrong.
Yes.
He was thinking about pulling out.
He was, so, but these are all rumors. And so we go on with the day, and then it's showtime. And I think it started like an hour late, 45 minutes late. And so there's already the kind of this like feel in the crowd of like, is this going to, like, what's going on? Oh my God. And then when he came out, as you said, in this kind of like tiny little box, and you didn't even really see him for the first like stretch of the show. Yeah. It felt like you were experiencing it as like high art. I think some people were experiencing as like this feels a little messy. Yeah. And I think that when the show ended, the show itself, we could debate that. I saw some people having a really great time. But then it felt really anticlimactic when he's like, okay, well, we've hit curfew and we have to end now. Yes. And then leaving the field, we bumped into this structure where it was like, what is this thing in the middle of the field? And you realize it's an ice skating rink. Oh, yes. And you're like, well, why is this here? And it was really unlikely. And then you come to find out that he had all these ice skaters on hand that were going to skate out there, and they were kind of pulled at the last minute. So it's just like all of the information circulating about this show was kind of chaotic. It was. And I will say, like, I have never walked out of Coachella on a Sunday night. It was the last show of the weekend. Yeah. I have never walked out where everyone walked out in relative silence. Yes. It was a very strange and interesting mood.
I felt the same way. I was walking out with my friend and I was silent because I thought it was amazing. I'm just like a big Frank Ocean fan. I guess I never thought I was going to get to see him. He's so like, he does not say yes to a lot of stuff.
Right.
Very private person. So I thought it was just like such a exciting moment to get to see him. I mean, I don't think he's played a show since. I mean, I'll fact check myself on that, but like, I really don't think he's played a show since. And I was walking out of there and I was silent because I was like, that was fascinating.
Well, it is.
And then,
it was. I think you're absolutely right. Like, it was fascinating.
Yeah, but I turned to my friend and I was like, wasn't that crazy? And she was like, that was terrible. I was like,
I mean,
no. I'm like, I totally
most
misread
of that
this.
show like laying on the ground with my jacket over my face, kind of just like
into the weekend. Yeah, I mean, it was, I loved it. But yeah, when I figured out about the ice skaters, though, that did make me think twice about my very, very generous assumptions about the show.
Yeah.
I thought that this must have been this beautiful plan. It turned out that this was not the original plan. I don't know, maybe part of the stage was still supposed to look like that and all that, but him being just inside the stage in that little studio setup was not really the original plan. There's all these ice skaters that were supposed to come out, which I don't know how that plays into what I saw. But anyways, Frank Ocean, I'm riding for you always. So
respect, of course, always. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, he did not, as we know, come back for weekend 2.
Yeah. I mean,
which is, I think, like that in and of itself is like very historic. I don't think that's ever happened.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge deal. But I mean, that was something. Did you end up going back to cover that second weekend? Because that was dance music. I sure
did.
Central.
They called it the Dance Music Super Bowl because the whole buzz all week was like, who are they replacing as a headliner?
Yeah,
Coachella had never had to replace a headliner the week between the two, and so. I forget the names that were being thrown around. I think Blink 182 was raised because they were a last minute ad weekend 1. They raised them to the main stage with good reason. That show was awesome. But there was kind of just this rumble of like something else is going to happen. And it ended up, of course, being Skrillex, Again Four Tet, who had this insane show that I was very lucky to be at in February, the February prior at Madison Square Garden. And it was probably like one of the most hyped experiences of my life. Like that show is absolutely magical. And so I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be them, but when I found out it was thrilling because obviously I'm like the dance music gal.
Yeah.
And just everyone in dance music was so excited to see those guys on that stage. The chef's kiss of it all is that they played on the skating rink.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, they played in the center of the field in the round. So like the thing ultimately was utilized, which I think is beautiful.
I'm sure someone backstage was like, thank God.
Whoever built it.
Can you even imagine like working at Golden Voice that week and working at Coachella that week trying to replace a headliner? I mean, that must have been the most stressful week.
I'm sure it was a wild ride, but I think they really they came through and it was a great show. It was a very exciting show.
We've talked already about how festivals have really tight margins. And as well as being our dance music reporter, festival girl, you're also reporting on sustainability, which I think all these things actually do play in together very nicely.
I do too. I actually see a lot of overlap. Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, for music festivals, as climate change continues to take effect and weather becomes more unpredictable, how do you see that impacting music festivals moving forward?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think like festivals are continuing to see wild weather and like suffering the consequences of that. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Burning Man, who, has had rain, like strange rain the last 2 years. I've heard of festivals moving to different parts of the year because it is now too hot to hold them in the summer.
Wow.
Look at what's happened to Bonnaroo. And, it's like these are bad storms. And it's hard to say, like, this is explicitly climate change related. But they've had, like, big summer storms for the past, I think, 2 years where, like, it's really deeply affected that festival. And so more and more festivals are really bumping up against the weather. And I think insurance is becoming more difficult as such because there are these kind of act of God things that happen.
Yeah. And that's another phrase, a little piece of jargon in contracts about festivals is force majeure.
Force majeure, yeah.
So can you explain what that means?
Force majeure, I think, really came into my consciousness during the pandemic, which force majeure, and maybe you can help me with this, is like, it's basically an act of God.
It is act of God.
Yeah, like it's just something that's so absolutely uncontrollable and you couldn't have seen coming. And that is kind of like a contract clause, right? Like that's what they write into the contract of like, maybe God will strike us down in some strange way that we can't foresee now, and we have to write this in here.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, it just sounds like whether or not you can attribute it directly to climate change, there is more weather volatility across the country. But that's really interesting that there's been some events that have had to move to different parts of the year due to the extreme heat of the summer. Like, what areas of the country?
Yeah, those events wouldn't necessarily go on record to speak about it, but just like think of places that are very hot in
Arizona, Texas, I don't know.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough. I feel like there are so many tiny details that go into planning a festival or an outdoor event of any kind, like an amphitheater event.
Yeah.
And it just feels like with tight margins, I can understand why there has been an issue with independent festivals not being able to last.
Totally. Like if you're an independent festival and you get wiped out one year because of weather, it's very difficult to rebound from that, which I think is really like, it's really unfortunate because these small independent festivals really have a lot of soul, a lot of character, and like the people putting them on, of course, have like a ton of heart, and you have to work really hard to pull off an event like that.
Yeah. Have there been any major Coachella weather disasters?
It's a good question. Not that I recall. I think that in 2014 during weekend 2, it got very, very windy. I remember leaving the Red Hot Chili Peppers set being like, we like can't really operate in this wind. I don't think the festival shut down.
Okay.
I don't recall the festival ever stopping because of the weather. Got
it. Okay. Well, I'm nearing the end of my questions, so I wanted to play a couple games with you if you're game.
I'm game for your games.
Game for the games.
Game.
Okay. I want to start off by doing a Coachella Mount Rushmore. Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore for Coachella?
It's a really good question. We're going to kind of have to stack them because some of these acts have more than one person in it.
Okay.
So I would say, I think Rage Against the Machine really just symbolizes the early ethos of Coachella, what it was, where it was coming from. So definitely Rage. Daft Punk, of course.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a dance music fan, I think you know that set was like very important to the trajectory of Coachella and to dance music itself. Got to put Beyonce on there. Historic, wonderful, all-time great show. And then the fourth on our Mount Rushmore, I think we could give it to the Pixies.
Okay.
Because they were really one of the early, like we said, reunion shows that solidified or like showed people like Coachella is a place where really big bands get back together, and it's a huge deal.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so the next game we're calling No Skips. Okay. This is our Coachella edition of it. It's basically a rapid fire question game where I ask you some stuff about going to Coachella. Hopefully this will help some people who are heading out to the festival in a couple days.
Hope I don't say anything weird. Okay, here we go.
Okay, we'll start off with what's an item you can't go to Coachella without?
A portable phone charger, which I actually never bring, but my friend always does. So
good friend.
Yeah.
What's a place on the grounds to escape festival chaos?
If you have a VIP pass, the Rose Garden. And if you don't, you can catch some shade, and like usually they have water guns at the Dulab stage, and you can cool off during the day.
What is an apparel item that is totally essential?
Just wear good shoes. When I see people in heels or platforms even you can work with, but when I see people in heels at Coachella, I wonder many things.
Yeah. What's an act that everyone should see this year?
Oh man. David Byrne is playing, and I've seen him on this tour. Who is this guy? It's an incredible show. He's a legend who is like, we're very lucky that he's still touring. So I would say absolutely him.
Great. What's a piece of Coachella advice that served you well?
Remember to eat.
What's a trick to get out of the festival at the end of the night?
I have two answers. One is, okay, you could have a VIP parking pass and leave a little early and skirt out that way. However, that can still be difficult. I'd say the real pro tip is get back to your car, take a little nap, and then wait for everybody to leave. When you wake up, the lot should be clear.
You're a genius for that, actually. I wish I had you the night after Frank Ocean, because I stayed to the very end.
Yes.
horrible.
I remember that.
I got in an unmarked
that.
car. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Don't do this, guys. But like there's this like whole thing that happens out when people are getting picked up from Ubers, where there'll be people who are not actual Ubers that will come up and be like, pay me $100 and I'll get you out of here right now.
Yeah.
And the Uber, like your app never works. Anyways, this is killing the rapid fire, but don't do that. Don't do that.
I was leaving once and people were so desperate that they were like, hey, can we give you $200 to bring us to our Airbnb? And I made $200 on it.
Wait, you did it? Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, no, honestly, it's survival mode at that point. At
1,000%.
Okay, what's a set you regret missing?
Daft Punk.
Yeah. What's the best time of the day to be at the festival?
It's got to be sunset because it's just like the site is so beautiful. The mountains are beautiful. They usually program it so the right bands are playing at the right moment. It's just like a very beautiful atmosphere.
What's a favorite stage?
A favorite stage? Low-key, Mojave and Gobi really give a lot. Like I saw Kraftwerk in Mojave last year, or was it Gobi? Like they're not the flashiest stages, but there's like very high caliber programming in both of those tents.
What's an underrated stage? I guess you just answered that, actually.
I think we could, I don't know if it's underrated because people love it, but every year that they have Despacio, which is kind of the nightclub, it's not Yuma, it's the nightclub from Too Many DJs and James Murphy. And don't sleep on Despacio if it's there.
Okay. What's something that looks cool but is actually a terrible idea to do at Coachella?
I don't understand how people go to Coachella with like 13 friends. Like it's too many people. How do you decide where you're gonna go, or like who's gonna go to the like? It would drive me crazy. I like to hang out with 1 or 2 people maximum.
That is fair. Okay. In a final game, we play this with everyone who comes on the record. Okay. It's called What Would You Cue? So basically, I'm just going to ask you to name one song for these few prompts. Okay.
All right. Let's go.
So first one, what would you cue to take you back to your childhood?
Thinking of You by Hanson. It was the 4th single on their incredible debut album. I loved that song as a kid. I loved it.
Amazing. What would you cue to represent your favorite era of music?
In the Light by Led Zeppelin.
What would you cue to remind you of your favorite concert?
This is so hard.
We were talking about this
beforehand. So hard.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I don't like there are several answers I could give. Maybe like One Big Holiday by My Morning Jacket.
What would you cue to represent your best Coachella memory?
I think it's there's so many. Like, can I give 2?
Yeah. Sure.
Freak Go Home by Darkside and Safe and Sound by Justice.
Amazing. Katie Bain, thank you so much for coming to On The Record, and everyone buy her book.
Yeah, buy
Desert
my book.
Dreams, all about Coachella. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much to Katie Bain for joining me to talk about all things Coachella, and be sure to pick up her book, Desert Dreams, The Music, Style, and Allure of Coachella. It is in stores now. And thanks for listening to this week's episode of On The Record. If you liked today's show, give us a follow on Instagram at Billboard On The Record, where you can see new clips of this show every single week. We'd also appreciate it if you rated us on your favorite podcast platform. All of these things help On The Record grow bigger and better than ever. Again, I'm your host, Kristen Robinson, and tune in next week for another peek behind the curtain of the music business. I'll see you then.